this case should have been possible. Not the timeline, not the evidence, not the final verdict. What police missed wasn't just one mistake. It was a chain reaction, every link pointing to something no one wanted to consider. Maybe the killer never left the house. Maybe the killer was never supposed to be found. And maybe the wrong person had been convicted. This is where the story begins. The Benning family lived in a quiet cul-de-sac in Crestview Hills, a neighborhood where people watered their lawns twice a day, where doors stayed unlocked, where everyone trusted the morning news. On a rainy Thursday, the Bennings home turned silent. Too silent. A neighbor noticed something strange first. All 3 cars still in the driveway, lights on in the kitchen, and a dog barking until its voice cracked. When officers finally entered, the scene froze them. The house was locked. Every door, every window, inside latch engaged. Nothing broken, nothing forced. A tragedy contained inside a perfect box. The surviving son, 22-year-old Caleb Benning, was found unconscious in the hallway. He called 911 minutes earlier, voice shaky, saying he woke up to something wrong in the house. He claimed he didn't remember anything. Police didn't buy it. A house locked from inside. A family dead. 1 survivor. Too convenient. The next morning, Caleb was in cuffs. Detectives claimed Caleb staged the scene. Their argument was clean, simple, wrapped in a bow. Caleb was the only one inside the house. No signs of forced entry. No neighbors reporting suspicious figures. And a shaky story about waking up confused. Case motive. Caleb argued with his father weeks earlier about dropping out of college. Case trigger. He had been home alone with the family that night. Case outcome. He was charged before the evidence was fully processed. Open shut. Except, the story had more holes than anyone wanted to admit. Caleb said he woke up on the floor. A normal person might stumble, panic, run to the nearest exit. But forensic luminol showed something disturbing. There was no trace of Caleb leaving his bedroom before the 911 call. No footprints, no dragged objects, no floor disturbance. Either Caleb teleported into the hallway, or someone cleaned the house with surgical precision. But the police ignored that. They said luminol readings weren't definitive. Every clock in the house stopped at 2:14 a.m. The oven clock, the bedside clock, the smart thermostat, even the grandfather clock in the living room. All frozen. Same time. Experts said it would take a major electrical surge to stop every analog and digital device at the same moment. But there was no outage in Crestview Hills that night. Whatever happened inside that house didn't touch the neighbors. Only the Bennings home. Caleb's attorney demanded an independent technician. The request was denied. On the back door, the one police insisted Caleb locked. Forensics found a second set of partial prints. Not Caleb's. Not any family members. Unknown. Unmatched. Unexplainable. The police called them smudges with no probative value. They never ran them through the national database. The Bennings dog, Jasper, was painfully loyal. He barked if a leaf touched the porch. But the night everything happened, not a sound. Jasper was found hiding under the dining table, tail between legs, shaking, terrified. Dogs bark at people, but not at something else, something they don't understand. Across the street lived an elderly couple with a doorbell camera pointed straight toward the Benning house. The footage from that night, at 2:13 a.m., 1 minute before every clock inside the house froze, the camera glitched. A burst of static, white noise. Then, a distorted silhouette appeared on the edge of the frame. Not entering, not leaving, just standing. Still. Then the footage cut completely. The police never released the clip. When a local journalist requested it under public records law, the department stated, "Footage is missing due to a transfer error." The journalist called it the most convenient glitch in the history of suburban crime. The trial lasted only 8 days. Prosecutor's argument. Caleb snapped after months of pressure. Defense's argument. Nothing about the scene made sense if Caleb acted alone, or at all. But the jury saw one thing, a locked house with one survivor. Caleb looked distant on the stand, nearly numb, struggling to remember anything about the night. They said it was guilt. He said it was trauma. The verdict came fast. Guilty. Life without parole. But the story should have ended there. Didn't. Because 1 year later, someone noticed the first crack in the case. Detective Riya Marlowe, newly promoted, was assigned to review cold files for digital archiving. She wasn't supposed to reinvestigate anything, but the Bennings file pulled her in instantly. Something bothered her. Everything bothered her. The untouched footprints, the frozen clocks, the glitch in the neighbor's camera, the unknown fingerprints, the silent dog. Every page whispered the same thing. This case wasn't solved. It was rushed, maybe even forced. When she requested the sealed evidence logs, she found something stranger. Several evidence items had been checked out months earlier by someone with no authorization. A name she recognized, Aegis Systems, a private security contractor hired by the city. What did a security contractor want with evidence from a closed case? No one could answer. Her supervisor told her to focus on her assigned task. She didn't. One night, Riya replayed the glitchy neighbor footage frame by frame. Most of it was unrecoverable. But at 2:13 and 42 seconds a.m., she caught a single clean frame. Figure, human-shaped, but wrong. The head seemed tilted, the shoulders too broad, the stance too still, and the figure was facing the Bennings house. Not moving, not turning, just watching. She enhanced the frame. There was something else. A shadow under the figure's feet, but no visible source of light. Almost like the light in the footage bent around it. Riya saved the frame. Within hours, her office computer froze, then shut itself off. When it powered back on, the frame was deleted. Every copy, every trace, except the one she printed stuffed inside her coat pocket. Still unconvinced, Riya dug deeper. She requested all house electricity logs for the night of the incident. The city utilities manager hesitated but eventually complied. At 2:14 a.m., the Bennings house registered a spike in current. A massive surge, equivalent to plugging in 20 industrial heaters at once. Enough to fry circuits, enough to freeze clocks, enough to disrupt digital signals. Like something was drawing power from inside the house, not from outside, inside. But here's where everything twists. The power surge occurred 18 seconds after Caleb made the 911 call. Meaning, he was already unconscious when it happened. Meaning, whatever caused the surge was still inside the house after Caleb collapsed. And likely left after the clocks froze. Through a locked door? Through a window? No. The logs showed the back door opened at 2:17 a.m., 3 minutes after the surge. Who opened it? The partial prints on the handle were never matched. Now Riya knew why. They weren't supposed to be. The next day, 2 unmarked SUVs parked outside Riya's building. Unusual. She received an email from an unknown address. Stop. You don't understand what you're digging into. Minutes later, her badge access to the evidence room was disabled. Her computer credentials revoked. Her supervisor turned cold, telling her to take some personal time. Then, as she walked to her car that evening, a folded note was tucked under her wiper. Inside, written in hurried ink, the house wasn't locked to keep the killer out. It was locked to keep something else in. And beside the message, a printed copy of the same shadowy figure she'd seen in the camera glitch. Not a copy from her file. A sharper version. A version she had never seen. Someone else had it. Someone watching her. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A small, fearful voice whispered, "Detective, I was there that night, and it's not what they think. He didn't do it, but something did." She froze. "Who is this?" she asked. The voice trembled. "You need to meet me. Tonight. Before they find me too." The call ended. Riya looked at the shadowy photo again. The shape, the stance, the unnatural stillness. Her heartbeat spiked. She realized something terrifying. The figure wasn't watching the house. It was waiting, and whatever Caleb survived wasn't human. Detective Mara Ihenacho replayed the audio clip for the 10th time. The diner worker's voice, soft, kind, cut off abruptly each time. No struggle in the background. No warning. Just a faint mechanical hum that the audio lab tech insisted wasn't random. He tapped the spectrogram again. This pattern, it's deliberate. Someone masked a message under the noise. Mara's stomach sank. Someone had planned this. Across town, the accused man, Elias Rocha, sat slumped in the visitation room, fingers tapping nervously on the table. He wasn't the cliché villain people wanted him to be. Just exhausted, confused, and increasingly afraid. "I told you," he muttered through the plexiglass. "I wasn't anywhere near her that night, and whoever sent that recording wants it to look like I was." Mara didn't reply immediately, because she believed him. At least, most of her did. Before leaving, she caught a reflection in the glass. Someone watching from the hallway. A familiar silhouette. Carver, her retired supervisor. He nodded at her with that unreadable half-smile. Reassuring, or warning, she still couldn't tell. Back at the laundromat, the retired guard fidgeted with an old cassette tape, thumb rubbing the worn plastic like a nervous tick. This showed up in my locker yesterday," he admitted softly. "I don't work here anymore. Haven't in years." Mara's heart kicked. The case she thought was new suddenly felt very old. As she reached for the tape, the guard hesitated. "Detective, you ever feel like someone is rewriting the story while you're still in it?" Mara froze, because she had, for weeks, and as the door chimed behind her, she realized she wasn't alone in the laundromat. Someone else was watching, quiet, hidden, waiting for her to press play. The story wasn't just about a missing diner worker anymore. It was about the truth someone had buried, and the people they were willing to frame to keep it that way. The laundromat's buzzing lights flickered as Detective Mara Ihenacho slipped the cassette into an evidence bag. Old technology always made her uneasy. Too easy to tamper with, too easy to hide secrets in. The laundromat guard kept glancing toward the back hallway, like he expected someone to step out at any moment. "Detective, I didn't tell you everything," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "I saw her, the diner woman, weeks before she went missing." Mara's breath caught. "Where?" He swallowed. "Here." That didn't make sense. Totally different parts of the city. The victim had no reason to be in this neighborhood, much less a dim backroom of a laundromat. Unless, the guard looked down at the cassette again. She was arguing with someone. Older man. Limp. Expensive coat. Mara's pulse jumped. A limp. An expensive coat. A man who always seemed to show up at the edges of her case. Carver. Her retired supervisor. The one who kept watching. Before she could ask more, her phone buzzed. A text. "Unknown number. Stop digging. You're following the wrong ghost." Mara's spine tingled. At that exact moment, the investigative reporter, Kamari Singh, pushed open the laundromat door, breathless and buzzing with energy. "Detective, I've been looking for you. The chief of staff, Caldwell, is stonewalling me. And now the mayor's office is scrubbing files connected to your victim." Mara's mind raced. A missing diner worker, a scared accused man, a mysterious audio message, a cassette tape delivered to someone who hadn't worked in years, a supervisor lurking in the shadows, and now the mayor's office getting involved? This wasn't a case. It was a web. What did they scrub? Mara demanded. Kamari held up his phone, showing a file directory with red access denied banners. "Everything related to a city contract from 9 years ago." He paused, glancing around the laundromat. "And the name of a child who went missing the same year." Mara felt a chill settle in her bones. Because 9 years ago, before she ever wore a badge, Carver had been the one running that investigation. And there was one surviving witness from that case, one who vanished from the system years later. The survivor, now 19. The kid with haunted eyes. The one someone didn't want found. Detective Mara Ihenacho stood in front of the abandoned duplex on Redwater Street. The same house from the original family massacre. The one the city declared unsafe sealed, and scheduled for demolition. Except it was still here, rotting, sinking, breathing secrets. Mara tightened her grip on her flashlight as Kamari Singh stepped out of the car behind her. "You're sure the survivor is inside?" he asked. Mara nodded. The text they traced, the one warning her to stop, came from a disconnected landline registered to this address. Inside the house, inside a home that had been legally dead for years, the front door was supposed to be boarded shut. City records said, sealed, unopenable, no access. But when Mara pushed gently, it swung open, like someone had been expecting her. Dust swirled in the beam of her flashlight. The staircase leaned left, as though the whole house was exhaling tired, heavy breaths. And then a faint shuffle upstairs. Mara raised her gun. "Who's there?" No answer, just that soft, dragging step again. Kamari whispered, "This feels wrong." He wasn't wrong. This house had seen death once, felt ready for more. They reached the upper landing. A single bedroom door was cracked open, light leaking through. Mara pushed it with her foot. A young man, thin, pale, hoodie torn at the sleeves, sat on the floor with his back against the wall, eyes hollow, haunted. The survivor, 19 now, but still carrying 9 years of terror. He didn't look at them when he spoke. "I heard you coming. Took you long enough." Mara knelt carefully. "We're here to help you." A bitter laugh. "That's what Carver said too." Mara's blood iced. Carver, her retired supervisor. The man the laundromat guard saw with the victim. The man who always showed up at the edges of her case. "Tell me what happened," Mara urged. The boy's voice trembled. "The night my family died. The house didn't lock from the inside." He swallowed hard. "Someone locked it from the outside." Kamari stiffened. "Meaning what?" The boy looked up, eyes wet, terrified. "Meaning my family didn't trap themselves." He paused. "They were trapped." The survivor reached behind him and produced a worn envelope. Inside was a faded photograph. A little girl smiling. Same house, same year. Mara frowned. "Who is she?" The survivor whispered. "My sister." Mara's breath hitched. "But records show you were an only child." "Because they erased her," he said, voice breaking. "They took her first, then came back for the rest of us." He pointed at the house's splintered window frame. "They took her through that window, then locked the door behind them." Kamari looked shaken. Why would anyone erase a child's existence? The survivor stared down at his trembling hands. "Because she wasn't taken by a stranger." He inhaled shakily. "She was taken by someone who needed her to disappear quietly." Mara leaned in. "Who?" He whispered the name like a curse. "Caldwell, the mayor's chief of staff." Kamari's eyes widened. "The mayor's right hand. Why would he?" A floorboard groaned behind them. All three froze. Mara spun around, gun raised. The hallway was empty, silent, but not still. Someone else was in the house. The survivor pulled Mara's sleeve urgently. "You don't get it." Caldwell didn't act alone. Footsteps echoed downstairs. Slow, heavy, deliberate. The survivor's voice cracked. "There were 2 of them." Kamari whispered. "2." The boy nodded, eyes filling with terror. "The man with the limp." Mara's heart slammed against her ribs. Carver, her mentor, her shadow, her handler, her threat. A voice drifted up from the bottom of the stairs. Calm, confident, too familiar. "Mara, bring the boy and step out slowly." Carver, standing in the dark, just out of sight. Beside him, another figure moved. Broad shoulders, expensive suit. Caldwell, the chief of staff's voice followed. "This ends tonight, detective." Mara positioned herself between them and the survivor. "You killed his family." Caldwell chuckled. "No, we removed obstacles." Carver added softly. "And you? You were never supposed to reopen this." Mara steadied her aim. "Then why leave a trail?" Caldwell stepped into the thin strip of moonlight. "We didn't." A cold smile. "He did." He pointed to the survivor. The boy brought you here. The survivor shook his head violently. No, no. I just wanted someone to believe me. Caldwell raised his gun. Carver lifted his. Mara tightened her grip. Everything balanced on the edge of a knife. Then, a window shattered downstairs. Shouts. Rushing footsteps. Police sirens blaring outside. Caldwell's face dropped. You called backup? Mara didn't blink. No. Carver's eyes widened, because he knew exactly what that meant. Someone else had blown the whistle. Someone outside their circle. Someone watching them all. Caldwell and Carver fled toward the back of the house as officers stormed the front. Mara shielded the survivor, dragging him out as the structure groaned under the chaos. Kamari shouted, "They're escaping through the alley!" Mara handed the survivor to a responding officer. She didn't chase, not because she didn't want to, but because she finally understood. This case wasn't about one family, or one missing girl, or one murdered diner worker. It was bigger, older, rooted deep in the city's bones. And the men at the center? They weren't done yet. Mara looked back at the collapsing house, the one that held 9 years of secrets. This wasn't closure. This was ignition. The real story was just beginning.